Uh, okay, so
Yeah.
it looks like it's going.
So, Jim, would you like to start with your announcement, what you shared with me yesterday?
Yeah. So uh, at the board development committee's last meeting, where it was talking about the bylaws, the finance administration office of general counsel person Lucian Geis just asked if we had checked in with the governor's office about the executive orders, which it's been months and months since I'd done that. So I did reach back out to them and just said, hey, the commission's interested in doing this fix, and I think the FNA leadership are supportive of it as well. Um, and the reply back was that they didn't think it was needed at this time. And I'm not really sure. That was kind of the only explanation. I asked if there was any kind of reason that I could give to the commission, and I haven't heard back yet. And of course, they to be quite honest, they don't owe me an explanation. I mean, it's uh, the governor's office can make whatever decision they want, and they don't owe me an explanation. So I don't know if we're going to get any kind of rationale behind it, but uh, the bottom line is that they don't think it's necessary at this time. So I've talked about it with Amy and with Terry, and I think they're both of the general opinion that the committee should go ahead and finish its work, since you're pretty close already to finishing it up, and then it'll be done. And if the desire to do the executive order changes at any time in the near future, or even if it's months and months down the road, at least the work will be done, and then the commission will be in a position to just say, well, here it is, and move forward without any additional delay.
Okay.
How does everybody feel about that?
That seems fine to me. So the work that this subcommittee has been doing is ultimately we're going to get to a point, but probably not going to do anything with it in the short term. So really, in terms of like the changes we're looking at, they're going to orient more around the bylaws and just like working with that.
Yeah, I think so. And in my conversations with both Terry and Amy, it seems like it makes sense to go ahead and take what this committee does and go ahead and send it to the Office of General Counsel and ask them to do a review.
Mm-hmm.
So that part is also done, so that we get as much done as possible. So again, if the will to do it changes in the future, we'll be as ready as possible to just hand over something and say, well, here it is. Let's move forward. So I think that would be the last step after this committee finishes its work, and of course the committee might then need to come back together one last time to review those suggestions from the Office of General Counsel. But at that point, I think we'd be done. We'd be as far as we could get at this point.
Didn't you ask the Assistant Commissioner Jarvis to find out?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I asked so I asked Adam Jarvis, who's the assistant commissioner here at Finance Administration and also represents the commission, represents FNA on the commission, if he would just check in with the commissioner just to see, if the commissioner was still supportive, and he thought that the commissioner was still supportive, but he was going to verify that and check in on that side of things.
Okay.
So,
right.
Jim, once we finish, we're going to send to the Office of General Counsel, correct?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think that makes the most sense to ask them to go ahead and take a look at it, so that we've got that part done as well. Because I mean, it's gonna have to be looked at somebody before we can send it to the governor's office. Now, the governor's legal team will also look at it, but I don't think it makes sense to send it to the governor's legal team when they've said that they're not prepared to do it at this time. So I think we just send it to the Finance Administration legal folks for them to take a look.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. If we don't have any other questions, Jessica or Andrea, do you have any concerns or thoughts before we move forward? Well, Jim, if you'll bring
None
up,
for me.
okay. Let's go ahead and look at our last big piece, right?
Sure. So I'm gonna scroll through and get to where the committee left off, which was at this restart here.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to leave that restart here for the time being, and then when if we get all the way done, I'll just cut it out. But if we have to stop before we get done today, I'll just move that somewhere else. So we were at this part that actually talks about the Department of Finance and Administration.
Mhm.
And the previous review that happened back in 2019, 2020, they had already suggested deleting the "and staff" from this description of what Finance and Administration is providing.
Mhm.
And then let's see. Sorry, I know we keep talking about this, but commission. I'm just looking back to see where we've landed on to use Volunteer Tennessee or the commission, because
Yeah, we needed to make that distinction because it was.
yeah, we need to. Yeah, so it looks like the very first part we said Volunteer Tennessee. It looks like it's it looks like we say commission here, authorized by the commission, commission staff. Commission was left as it was. So it looks like the committee was using commission instead of Volunteer Tennessee.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that. For
Well,
these,
because the Volunteer Tennessee is really the staff.
well, Volunteer Tennessee is the commission.
Right, but the reason
I mean,
we changed it is because there were staff actions versus commission actions. That's why we changed it to the commission. Because it's
right.
confusing.
Yeah, it is. It can be a bit confusing. And it looks like elsewhere we were using the commission instead of Volunteer Tennessee. Although it's it's both the commission and the agency. So Volunteer Tennessee is both. The Volunteer Tennessee, I think, encompasses both the commission and the staff and everything that goes along with it being an agency, I think. So I'm not sure what to do in this instance, where it's because this is specifically saying the commission is authorized to accept funds and in-kind services.
So Jim, and somebody in me, hopefully, I think you'll be able to answer this, maybe. Is there a way for us just to add a clause or the definition for both, saying that if we refer to commission, it refers to the volunteer people across the state, and if we refer to Volunteer Tennessee, we're referring to all operations pertaining to the agency underneath the state?
Yeah, well, and as Jessica pointed out in the chat, the very first section says Volunteer Tennessee, and then in parentheses says commission is hereby established. So so again, it's a bit confusing because it has kind of a dual meaning. The commission represents both the agency itself, but then also the governing body of commission members. But so, I mean, here it says the commission, the committee didn't suggest changing it here. It says the commission, but that's talking of like the composition of the governing body. The commission itself is 25 members. But the actual name of the agency is Volunteer Tennessee. It started out as the Tennessee State Commission on National and Community Service. And then that was changed in 2006 to change it to Volunteer Tennessee. So that's the official name of the agency, is Volunteer Tennessee. But again, that encompasses both the commission governing body and the staff and all the stuff that the commission does.
So is it fine to just say, you know, it looks like we used commission after Volunteer Tennessee initially and just use commission throughout, and just because in the beginning it talks about it being interchangeable, so just use it that
Yeah.
way. And if we get like as specific as talking about a staff related thing, we'll note that, but otherwise let's just,
Yeah,
you know.
let's not go back. I'd really rather
Yeah.
not go backwards
Yeah.
again.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think these edits that are here in blue, those are the ones that were made in the previous reversion. Although I thought those edits were all in red, but it looks like maybe not, because this group hasn't gotten this far yet, I don't think.
Right.
So I think this is what the previous committee thought about it. So we can, if people want to go back, we can just reject those
Yeah.
edits.
No going
But
back.
we're
Let's
not
move forward.
procuring office space and supplies. I mean, that's,
Well, yes, the commission would be doing that. I mean, that's the whole point of this section, is to give the commission authority to do things as a state agency. Otherwise, the commission can't do anything.
okay. I'm just, because F&A, you're employees of F&A, so I'm just trying to make sure we don't step in that again.
Right, but the point of changing this is to make it clear that the employees are employees of the commission as administratively attached. And so we would no longer really be considered F&A employees except for just administrative purposes. And that's the example that we were looking at. I can pull that up.
Well, this
So-
is where we got in, yeah, this is,
Yeah. So
Well, Yeah, so
kind of
hold on, let me
I-
make this bigger. Yeah,
say
go
with
ahead.
like the bylaws, right? Like, I mean, we got into this whole discussion last time that nobody has a clear sense of like, you know, like changing organizational structure and what the implications are of that. In this, I mean, like, are we proposing to separate from FNA? And I mean, it kind of seems like that's a side project that would require some larger discussion.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
maybe part of what we're trying to do here is clarify the like day-to-day relationship, which, you know, from where I'm sitting, it feels kind of like the relationship between the appointed FNA representative and the executive director and the staff, right? Like there's like a dynamic shift there that I think we're trying to clarify. But like, I don't know if we're in a position to like change the organizational structure without considering that. And maybe that's what we're talking about. I just, again, I'm hesitant to put something together where we haven't like, and I'm sorry, I haven't been to all of these particular meetings, but just like.
Well, yeah, so that's exactly what I think we're trying to do, is not separate from FNA, because I don't think my understanding is that can't be done through executive order, or if it can, it most likely has not been done before and would probably not be the way to go. So Volunteer Tennessee would continue to be administratively attached to the Department of Finance and Administration, but the commission would have full authority over its staff.
Okay.
and
So-
that's not how
so-
F&A sees it. So
That's
that's where
not-
we got in trouble.
That's not how they see it under the current version of the executive order. So if we change the executive order to make it clear that the commission has authority over the staff, then they have already said that they are okay with that. So as examples, just let me go back and refresh. The deputy commissioner of Department of Human Resources suggested that I look at a couple other commissions that are also administratively attached to another department and look at how those commissions and boards and commissions are set up to give them authority over their staff. So that's what I did. I went and I looked at the state statute. I talked to a couple of these people, and so the Historical Commission is one. It is administratively attached to the Department of Environment and Conservation. The only difference between them and Volunteer Tennessee is they're set up in state statute and we're set up in executive order. So that's really the only difference. But they are set up so that their commission has full authority over their staff. So, you know, it's I'm not going to read this, but it's attached to for administrative purposes. There's this section here that says the commission has authority to create positions and employ such personnel as deemed effective to conduct its affairs. So that's the Historical Commission. The Bureau of Workers' Comp is administratively attached to the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. Their language says, and this is specifically where Deputy Commissioner Farmer recommended that I look for language that would make it clear that the commission is operating as an autonomous unit, not an independent unit, because we're not going to be independent of FNA, but working as an autonomous unit, being still attached to Finance Administration. So Bureau of Workers' Compensation shall be an autonomous unit that shall be attached to the Department of Labor Workforce Development for administrative matters only. That's crystal clear. It says this body, it's called a bureau instead of a board or commission, but this bureau is attached to this other agency for administrative purposes only. Otherwise, it does its own thing.
But that's in state statute, right? Like the historic, it's not an executive order.
Right. But we can take this language and put it into Volunteer Tennessee's executive order to make it clear through executive order that Volunteer Tennessee is an autonomous unit.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think if that's the point, and it's not like, oh, let's separate from FNA, it's just clarifying the relationship. This seems to indicate that, you know, instead of Bureau of Workers, Volunteer Tennessee shall be an autonomous unit that shall be attached to the Department, you know, Finance and Administration for administrative matters only. Yeah,
sure.
I mean,
right.
Seems...
Right. And again, this is specifically the language that Deputy Commissioner Farmer recommended that I look at for Volunteer Tennessee operating kind of autonomously and having authority over its staff. This is what she said, you know, look at this one. I mean, she recommended that I look at these others as well, but this one has very, very clear language. Now, the Commission on Children and Youth, which is an independent agency, it's not attached to any other agency, it actually has another commission that's attached to it called the Tennessee Second Look Commission. And it also says it's administratively attached to the Commission on Children and Youth, but for all purposes other than administration shall be an independent commission. So again, similar language to the Bureau of, Bureau of Workers' Comp, very similar language, but something that is very clear. This body is attached to another body, but it's going to operate autonomously and have authority over what it does.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is that the committee take one of those versions of that language and use it and substitute this part with it, or substitute it in place of this sentence.
Terry, did you have a comment?
I do. When it says for administrative purposes, what happens with our HR component?
Well, so that would be part of the administrative services that that FNA would continue to provide. Now, when I talked to the Historical Commission, they actually have an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Environment and Conservation that specifies what services the department provides for them. And he gave me some examples, you know, personnel process support, budgeting, purchasing, those kinds of things. So they actually spell out in that MOU what what Environment and Conservation is providing for the Historical Commission.
Okay.
So we could certainly do the same thing. The committee could also add language to the executive order. Sorry, I'm going to try and put these not side by side, but top and bottom.
Yeah.
So the executive order is on top, and then the potential language from other agencies is down below. So one of the things that Deputy Commissioner Farmer recommended as a possibility is that in the executive order, it specifies the types of things that the department is providing. And the committee could certainly do that. My concern about that is if we're not thinking about something that the commission might need from the department, and we need it from them later, that they can say, well, no, that's not in the executive order. We don't have to provide that to you. And then the commission would potentially be in a pickle of, you know, how it's going to get whatever that's done. So my recommendation would be to use one of these sets of language that is more generic and just says that it's going to provide administrative support. Let's see, I'm going to actually try to further split my screen to include. So, oops, Andrea must have gotten kicked out. Hey, Andrea, sorry, did you get kicked off?
Yeah, my phone just dropped the Wi-Fi.
Okay. Well, welcome back. Okay. So on the bottom half is are the two potential languages that the committee could look at providing. Again, the first one is Bureau of Workers' Compensation shall be an autonomous unit that shall be attached to the Department of Labor and Workforce Development for administrative matters only. And then the other is the commission shall be administratively attached to the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth, but for all purposes other than administration shall be an independent commission. So those are the two options. I don't know that there's any pluses or minuses around either one of those. I think they're both pretty clear.
Yeah, and because they were examples that were kind of advanced as recommendations to achieve the outcome, it seems like, I mean, using one of those would be a logical step forward. Shall be attached to the Department of Labor for administrative matters only. Shall be administrative, other than administration shall be independent. Now, so like I think some reinterpretation occurred around the term staff support, right? Is that and staff support provide necessary administrative and staff support?
Yeah, well, that's where then so further down there's the language in the executive order about executive director, and it's, I mean, we'd have to change this to say the commission, but Volunteer Tennessee shall appoint a full-time director who shall serve at the pleasure of Volunteer Tennessee. Or again, we'd need to change that to commission. That makes it clear. The commission is employing the executive director, and then there's a set of things related to the executive director. There's other language. Sorry, I'm going to take away these suggested languages about being autonomous for a second, because so here's similar language from the Commission on Children and Youth. The commission shall be administered by an executive director who is appointed by and serves at the pleasure of the members of the commission. And then there's, a few other things about the qualifications for the executive director. Then they actually have another thing that says the executive director, subject to approval of the commission and commissioner of finance and administration. And I'm not sure what's behind having finance and administration there. To be honest, I'm not sure what that's about. Shall employ other personnel as may be necessary for performance of the duties described by this part. And that's talking about that part of the code. And then let's see. And then we go back up to this part for the historical commission that says that in order to effectively carry out on its program, the commission has authority to create such positions and employ such personnel as are deemed necessary to conduct its affairs in accordance with law rules applicable to employees in the unclassified state service. So right now, the version that was done a few years ago already has the executive director part. So I would think that it would be wise for the commission to then also add in something about, the other personnel, the other staff, to make it clear that the commission isn't just hiring the executive director, that the commission also has the authority to have other staff, and that the executive director is the supervisor of those staff. And I think, yeah. So this, going back to the Commission on Children and Youth, this is similar to that other statement. The executive director, subject to the approval of the commission and the commissioner of finance administration, shall employ other personnel as may be necessary for performance of duties described in this part. So again, we're talking about adding language that makes it very clear the commission is employing the executive director, then the executive director
Jim, just
is.
making sure. Hello, Jim. I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the commission would have the authority to hire the executive director, but you would have the authority to hire or dismiss or any personnel, I guess, related issues. That would be under your purview because we as a commission have hired you to do that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, well, if the committee puts in language like this, yes, that's what would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does having it structured that way for other staff and not the executive director make it seem like we're employing the executive director separately outside of the state system? Because I know Lucian has talked about like having the authority to like spend our own money to hire whatever staff, but those wouldn't necessarily be, you know what I'm saying? He's like kind of splitting that.
Yeah, well, that goes back. So when I talked to Deputy Commissioner Farmer, she said that there are two kind of really important things that need to be in place for it to be clear that the commission has staff and has authority over their staff. One is that there's a line item in the state budget for Volunteer Tennessee that has staff in, the staff positions in that line. And we already have that. Volunteer Tennessee has a line in the state budget that shows the number of positions that the commission is authorized to fill, or under the current interpretation, finance and administration is authorized to fill those slots for the commission. So that part's already there. And then the other part is this kind of authorizing language that makes it clear that the commission is what in state statute language is called an appointing authority. And that's at the top of this document that I sent out yesterday. And this is language directly from the state statute. And it says appointing authority means a commissioner, department, officer, or agency having power to make appointments to and separations from positions in state service. And appointments, that means hiring people. Is essentially what that means. And then a state agency, because it says agency, it doesn't specify the types of agency, it just says agency. Further on in that part of the statute, it says state agency means an authority, board, branch, commission, committee, department, division, or other instrumentality in state service that is subject to this chapter. So,
So
so under all of this, like the commission already has in its current executive order, it already says that the commission can employ additional staff. There's just the confusion over, is the commission currently employing those, or is F&A employing those? And where the current interpretation is F&A is actually employing those staff, not the commission directly.
I mean, should we just make a blanket statement like this that applies to the executive director and the staff, except, it's saying that the commission has the appointing authority? I'm just trying to make sure everyone is still like that the commission has, like, the staff and the executive are tied to the commission, but that it's understood that they're still connected to the state, but for like administrative support purposes only.
Right. And I think that's, for the rest of the staff, I think that's where this type of language that I have highlighted would also need to be included, because it very specifically says the executive director, subject to approval of the commission, and the commissioner of finance and administration shall employ other personnel as may be necessary for performance of the duties as prescribed by this part.
Yep.
So that makes it clear that the executive director is employing those people, not F&A, not some other group or body, that it's the executive director that's employing them, and that the executive director is doing that under the authority of the commission.
And the commissioner of finance and administration. So it still acknowledges a relationship with finance and administration.
Yeah. Well, again, this is from state statute related to the Commission on Children and Youth, which is an independent body. So to be honest, I don't know why it references the commissioner of finance and administration in this part, because they are a separate agency. I'm not really sure why that's in there.
Well, for today, maybe we should, like, in order to achieve our goal of getting to a place where we can move this forward, let's maybe do the piece where we take the language about the executive director from one of the two spots. Let's go ahead and replace that first sentence in the section we were looking at with
Second one, the one that was the next one.
Okay. So yeah. So I've got them split screen. Actually,
Yeah.
let me make this bigger for a second while we look at this part. So the one for the Bureau of Workers' Comp is up at the top, and then the one for the Second Look Commission is at the bottom.
I like the second one a little bit more, because it starts with, like, specifically saying basically, like, we are attached to finance and administration, but for purposes other than administration, Volunteer Tennessee is an independent commission.
Yeah, I agree, Jason.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts about that?
No,
I like
that would be my pick too. And
Good.
and I don't, not to add more work, but I do like the added piece of the MOU to say specifically what those administrative support or administrative duties are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea too. I think that would need to be done separate outside of the executive order. But yeah, I think that would be an important. Let's see if there's a way I can. Okay, I think that gets it. So it reads, the commission shall be administratively attached to the Department of Finance and Administration, but for all purposes other than administration shall be an independent commission.
Now, is administration, not hate this, is administration supervision?
Well, there again, I think that's where then the other language about the staff
Yeah.
is important to include to make it clear that the commission, you know, has authority over the executive director and the executive director has authority over staff. I'm the executive director part is already in here, and we can look at that in a second. I'm not really sure where this. Let's see. Yeah. So this part that says the executive director, subject to the approval of the commission and the Commissioner of Finance Administration, shall employ other personnel as may be necessary for performance of the duties prescribed by this part. So that's the other language that I think is important to add. And maybe that goes under the executive director piece.
Yeah, I mean, it says ED, employing other staff. Yeah, it seems like that could fit under a descriptor for that. And I mean, approval of the commission and the Commissioner of Finance and Administration. I think it again kind of ties it back to being like it's the executive director with the support of the broader commission and like within the norms of those kind of two attached considerations is the person who is identifying and managing those folks.
Okay, well, that certainly makes sense to me. Then, so maybe we can come back to that language and when we get to the executive director part.
Okay.
So let me make this bigger. Okay, so just to refresh, it now says the commission shall be administratively attached to the Department of Finance and Administration, but for all purposes other than administration shall be an independent commission.
Yeah.
Then it authorizes the commission to accept funds.
Was there a comment at the physical meeting last time when we talked about bylaws? I think, was it Dawn that said something about accepting, because it says commission authorizes in kind. So what was his concern about not being able to accept like donations from,
like physical items? Yeah, I think is what he wanted to know.
Yeah, well, it's accept funds and in-kind services from other state and federal entities. I mean, we could add. I don't know what we would add there. It's I mean, or we could add something like private.
Federal. We could say private and public entities. That would just cover.
Well, I think we should.
To you, Jim, though, is under Tennessee law. I don't think state things can accept that. That's why we have Friends of Tennessee, right?
Well, no. State agencies can accept donations. If they're not earmarked, they have to go into the general fund. In which case, my understanding, and please, I am not a tax lawyer, so don't quote me as saying this as being the truth, but my understanding is if they are donated and go into the general fund, that they are not tax deductible for the donor. But if the donor specifies a specific project for those funds to be used by the state, so for example, someone donates money to Volunteer Tennessee to use for the conference, that then is tax deductible under federal tax laws. And I don't think there's anything in state statute that prohibits state agencies from accepting donations. So my understanding is that it's okay for state agencies to take money and use it for the purposes that it's donated for. The problem is that most people don't want to donate money to state agencies or to government agencies. They will, most people want to donate money to nonprofits. So, and there's other, I mean, there's a lot of other complications that come along with having money donated directly to Volunteer Tennessee. You know, it takes time to process it, and then to actually spend it takes time, and it has to go through different processes. So, having money given directly to Volunteer Tennessee as a state agency is not as nimble and flexible as having it go to Friends.
Okay. So
and
from
that-
a functional standpoint, like because we have Friends, we can accept donations and sponsorships through Friends. So like doing nothing particular with this doesn't like inhibit our ability to do that.
Certainly not through Friends, because Friends is its own thing. I mean, we could add private entity, like private here. So from other state and federal, and you know, just to, I mean,
Federal or state, federal, and private. So maybe take out one of those.
I mean, yeah,
and.
we could take out this and.
Yeah, state, federal, common, private entities.
And having as authorized by Tennessee law makes it clear that we would still have to follow whatever is in state statute. So if there is something in state statute that says that Volunteer Tennessee can't accept a donation directly, then we would follow that state statute, regardless of what's in the executive order.
Okay.
So yes,
this would also be responsive to something that Don felt, you know, pretty. He felt strongly enough to mention it, and
yeah. Well, I mean, Volunteer Tennessee has been around for 30 years, and we have accepted donations from private entities a lot of times, and it's never been an issue. So I mean, this part I think is good, but I don't think it's necessary, but it does make it clear. And Jessica put in the chat, would in-kind services include donations, physical items? Yeah. So that would, yeah. In-kind covers anything that's not actual cash.
fabulous.
Yeah. Okay. So this other stuff was stuff that was in the original, the previous group thought, you know, it says supplies necessary to enable it to effectively carry out its mission, and they thought that enable it to was not necessary, so they suggested striking that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Then we get here to this other stuff that
The commission, yeah,
the
just
commission.
anywhere where it needs to be the commission, going ahead and doing that. But are there parts where we need to make decisions so that we're not just like watching the shifting of that, because we can just do that? And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so if you all are okay with me going back through and changing all these from Volunteer Tennessee back to commission, I'll do that after we're done with the call. But
Cool.
So then we get to the executive director part. And again, all of this was added in the previous revision. I'm not sure why some of it's blue and some of it's red, but it was all done at the same time. So Volunteer Tennessee shall appoint a full-time executive director who shall serve at the pleasure of Volunteer Tennessee, which that needs to be changed to
the commission.
yeah, sorry, I'm going to do that right now, so because it's not highlighted, so I want to make sure that I don't forget that. Now that is that's similar to what's at the bottom. It's a little shorter than what's in the Commission on Children and Youth, which is this paragraph. Although I think this paragraph is the entire language that the Commission on Children and Youth has about their executive director, whereas the executive order for Volunteer Tennessee has a qualifications section, a duties section, and then a salary and benefits section, which actually I think, now that I think about it, the Commission on Children and Youth does has a salary and benefits section. I think I just didn't include it in here because I didn't think that part was necessary, because that's not really what the commission was going to be looking at. So the qualifications kind of it's like it mimics, not exactly, but the Children and Youth has some qualifications for their executive director. It does have their kind of duties are spelled out in this one sentence. Which it might be good to specify that the executive director shall be a full-time employee of the commission and shall be responsible for administration of the rules, blah, blah, blah. So something like that. So maybe, actually it does say a full-time executive director. So the full-time is already there.
I think the difference is that like Volunteer Tennessee shall appoint a full-time executive director, and the other language says the executive director shall be a full-time employee of the commission, which I think gets into the like, are you an employee of the commission or an employee of the state of Tennessee kind of thing. I don't know who shall serve at the pleasure of.
I would agree. And then the question of, do they have, like, I feel like if that question comes up, there's going to be a question of where does my rights as an employee sit? Like, is that up to the discretion of the commission, or do I have the state employee benefits, et cetera?
Well, yeah. So I'm not sure what kind of language in the executive order would be needed to clarify that, but the language that's here for children and youth, I mean, none of the language that's on the stuff that's on the bottom is talking about people who aren't state employees. I mean, it's all about people who are employed by the state of Tennessee through various agencies. So I don't, I think there was, sorry, I'm going to make this part at the bottom bigger because there was, sorry. Sorry, when we were, so this part, in order to effectively carry out its program, the commission has authority to create such positions and employ such personnel as deemed necessary to conduct its affairs. I think we might want to come back to that because that again, that makes it clear that the commission has the authority to have actual employees beyond the executive director. But let's see.
So like this section is under the section that says that the commission is like an independent agency, but also acknowledges its attachment to FNA. So like it's describing this below that. So contextually, it seems like you wouldn't have to say like as attached to FNA in every single thing you say,
right?
Like because you say that in that kind of part higher up, does that, so when you're talking about the executive director and all of that, you don't have to just like repeat that refrain every
yeah,
single...
I don't think so. But
okay.
I think this, the clause that we just moved off of essentially sets out, all the authorities of the commission. Now, what we could look at doing, or what the committee could look at doing, is the very last clause that currently says the commission shall have authority to employ such additional support staff within budgetary limits as it deems necessary. That could be replaced by something like what's at the bottom.
Because
So,
like, so like, if you remove that, that removes the language that talks about the authority of like independently creating positions, like independent from the state, and it would replace it with language that talks about hiring people through the state system, right?
yeah, this says in accordance with the law and rules applicable to employees in the unclassified state service. I don't think they. I'm not sure if unclassified is used anymore. We'd have to look at that. But yes, I mean this makes it clear that these are state employees. It's that we're not talking about
Yeah.
something else.
Because we're not trying to do that, right? Like we're not trying to just like randomly raise some money and like hire a person separate from the whole rest of the thing. It makes more sense to clarify like that's what that is.
That's my understanding. If you all want to go out and raise money and hire someone separate from the state,
No.
I think but my understanding is yes, that we're still looking at having everyone be state employees and continue to get paid through the state and have state benefits, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of thinking about it, I'm, again, historically, the executive order was set up in a way such that the commission could get started and have some support from previous agencies to staff it temporarily while it then went off and the commission was actually formed, and then the commission hired other staff. So this section down at the bottom is kind of was to say, okay, now once you're kind of up and running, you can hire the other staff, is my interpretation of why this is here at the end, instead of being up in this kind of clause that essentially says, there's a lot of stuff in this one clause. The commission can accept money, it can procure office space and supplies, it can enter into contracts. There's all kinds of authorities in this one clause. So rather than having that little bit at the end about other staff, the committee could look at putting this kind of language up here. That's kind of the generic authority to employ staff. And then when it gets down to the specifics, there's the executive director part that it spells out the responsibilities of the executive director specifically. And then potentially just then deleting this last clause about, additional support staff. Structurally, I think that makes more sense to me, to have all those kind of authority things in the same place.
Okay.
I mean, there are, so there's another, this is in a separate clause about distributing state legislatively appropriated funds. Then there's this other that's pretty generic and says that the commission can take other such actions to promote its aims, blah, blah, blah. So that's just very generic. Then there's this about counties. So this thing about staff could be a separate thing, but I think again, structurally, I think it makes sense to have all those authority things kind of together.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, to just group it as opposed to have like a random thing kind of hanging at the bottom of it all, putting it together. So yeah, let's just take that and adjust it so it fits.
Do folks have an opinion of whether or not to tack it on to this paragraph here, or to have it be a separate clause?
don't. I would prefer maybe a separate clause, but I really don't have a preference for it. The only reason why I would say separate clause is just to make sure it looks clear, it's not muddled in another paragraph, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the
Yeah, I
same
was
thing.
gonna say
So I think it
I-
could stay. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree
Okay.
with you.
Okay. All right. I'll also, if you all are okay with it, I'll go back through and fix the numbering. I think though it's because it says it's carry out its program, but above it says carry out its mission. So I think mission is probably the better
Yeah.
the better word to use there. Okay, so going back to the executive director piece, there's the qualifications, the duties, which again the children and youth duties are kind of are much shorter, but this spells out executive officer of, need to change that to the commission.
This is what's also included in the bylaws, right? So we wanted it to
Yeah.
mirror.
Yeah,
So-
exactly. That's why this got put in here, because this was already in the bylaws. And when it was looked at 4 years ago, the committee's like, well, let's make them both be the same in terms of what's spelled out for the executive. So this is just copied and pasted from the bylaws into the executive order.
Yeah. I think the qualifications and the duties are fine in terms of like describing what would, determine a qualified executive and what the activities are. I think, again, if there's a piece of this that, could lead to any kind of confusion about, again, we did state higher up that like for the purposes of things, and conceivably this position is being described in the context of a independent organization who's like has admin support from FNA, so that would be implicit in
Mhm.
this. And this is just the description, which is consistent with what we've already got, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah. Again, this is copied and pasted from the bylaws. So now we would, I would need to go back through and looks like Terry maybe got frozen.
Somebody else is calling. Is that Terry?
I think it's yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, I got kicked off somehow. I'm on my phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we can still see your screen. You're frozen in place, but it's good to have you back.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So, so if people are okay with it, the only thing I'd also suggest is that language. Sorry, I'm going to have to find it about. Oh, so there's two. Sorry, I'm going to do another split screen, and I know we're really close to time, but I think we're also really, really close to being done.
right.
So the top part is the Commission on Children and Youth that says the executive director, subject to approval, et cetera, shall employ other personnel as may be necessary. Then the second look says, to the extent funds are available, the commission may hire additional staff or consultants to assist the commission in completing its duties. So those are the two variations for the different things that the Deputy Commissioner Farmer recommended that I looked at. And so that's their language about other staff. I think the one at the top is a bit stronger because it specifies the executive director with the approval of the commission and FNA shall employ other personnel. So it makes it clear that the executive director is doing it, and it's not like out there of like, well, who's responsible for doing this piece?
I like that one.
Okay, so I think I think that would probably need to be added in. I think that would need to be added in as one of these lowercase Roman numerals. And I think it probably makes sense for it to be kind of higher up. Like maybe the second one. And then,
Yeah, I mean, because establishing your team, it's like right there with like the responsibilities to the broader commission, right? Like in terms of operation, that's kind of baseline. So
yeah. So, and because this already talks about, so I'm what I did is I just deleted where it says executive director, because this is a colon spelling out all these different things, and it already says executive director shall, and shall do all these things, shall, subject to the approval of the commission, and the commissioner of finance administration, shall employ other personnel as may be necessary for the performance of the duties as prescribed by this. I think it should be order instead of part. And then I'll go through and renumber the rest of these lowercase Roman numerals. Does that seem okay to everyone?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And that, so then that's it. I mean, this, I think that, oops. The only other thing then would be to delete this, this kind of repetitive clause, because that clause that I just deleted, I think is made not necessary by the clause that we just added in about where did I put it? Oh, number 2, employ other personnel.
yeah, that makes sense because we basically move that type of descriptor to another part.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine.
So I think that's it. I mean, the date that would obviously need to change based on when it actually happens, and but I think that's it.
Whoa.
Sweet. Woo!
Yay.
Yeah, good job, everybody.
Woo.
Woo!
Virtual high fives.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Now, Jim,
Well,
will we
yeah.
report this to the commission when we meet in October, or will we let this lie until it's ready to be, I guess when I'm looking back at my notes, when when it's needed, when the EO
Sure.
is needed, will we bring it forward at that time, or should we tell them what we've done in October?
Well, so my recommendation would be, step 1 would be like, I'll finalize the edits that we were just talking about, and I'll send it out to the full group for
Okay.
everybody to take a final look at to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Okay.
Then once this group gives me the final okay, I would say the second step should be that I will send it to the Office of General Counsel for them to review.
Okay.
Then once they've had a chance to review it, my recommendation would be that this committee report out at the October retreat and go ahead and ask for the commission to vote to approve it. Because I think it's important that the full commission approve it before it gets submitted to the governor's office, even if the governor were ready to do it. I think that step is necessary. So at that point, then at the end of the retreat in October, the commission would have the final version that's ready to go to the governor's office when it's time to do it.
Okay. Gotcha.
Fabulous.
And then will
Okay.
that, as far as the bylaws go, Jason, using this as a guide,
Oh, bylaws should be good. I mean, we got to a point where we like clarified some language in it, and I think it was just a matter of the timing when we got it, but I think it was just too close to the most recent meeting. But on the next one, were we having Lucian look at it one more time, and then we were gonna get it like voted on the next meeting?
Yeah, he's supposed to be getting his comments to me here very shortly. Yeah, so he is looking at it right now.
Cool. So
Yeah.
we're right there with both of them.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yay.
Yeah. Yay.
All right. I like it when something happens.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time and your work.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
I'll
Thanks,
I'll make
everybody.
these edits here in the next half hour or so and send it out to the full group. And then what I'll do is I'll ask you all to send any comments or any changes, additions within about a week. And then
Okay.
from there, I'll send it to Office of General Counsel.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yay. Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
You too.
See
Bye-bye.
you.